Good morning. My name is Sally Futai Fulton, and I've sat with Great Mountain Zen Center here in Maitreya Abbey for 10 years or so. It's been a long time, and it has been a source of great blessings to me. And I'm so honored to be able to read my poetry here this morning as a way of saying that it's made a big difference in my life. My poetry, each one of my poems is a Dharma gate in some way. And so I call myself a Buddhist poet, although I don't really talk about Buddhism in my poetry. I focus on my life, which is what I have. And the two principles of Buddhism that I hold most dear to me are the principle that we are all one, that in some way that we can't quite understand, we are all one. And so my poetry, although it's very intimate and personal to me, I believe can speak to everybody. So I'm very, very much looking forward to sharing that with you. And I'd like to start by thanking, first of all, the Roshis for their continuing guidance and support to me all of these years and their friendship. And to Corin for organizing this poetry sharing opportunity. And especially to the beloved community of my Sangha, and for everyone joining me today, here or online, as I read from my new book of poetry, Holding On to Nothing. This book is dedicated to the memory of my husband, Bill, who I was married to for 32 years, and who I always say was my greatest teacher. He taught me so much about love, first of all, about courage of meeting life head on, and peace, hope, and forgiveness. He taught me the Dharma in ways that I can't even imagine, but he changed my life. And so I dedicate this book to the memory of my husband, Bill, and also to my sister, Kate. My sister is an inspiration to me in so many ways, and a complete support for me. And she just emanates love and acceptance for my work. And I so much appreciate her as my sister. She shares my Buddhist path. And so we have so much to talk about. So this is for the life of my sister, Kate. I'd like to say a few words about the book. First of all, I'm going to be leaving a number of books here at the Abbey for anyone who is interested in taking my poetry home and having it for themselves. And I only ask that you open your hearts and make a generous donation to the Abbey, as the Roshis are getting ready for a great transition this summer. And they have a lot to do in the Abbey. So just remember generosity as one of the guiding precepts. So the book itself is divided into 4 loose sections, and it begins in the first section with grief and losing someone that I have loved. The second section includes the poetry of gratitude and my attention to special moments in my life, and especially nature, the beauty of nature. The third section is poetry of dissent, in which I express my profound feelings of helplessness in changing human passions and actions that lead to the suffering of war, gun violence, the demise of the ideals of democracy, and especially human-caused climate change with the resulting destruction of life on this planet. I end my book with poems of insight and hope. Each one of these sections remind me that I cannot hold on to either the joy or the suffering of what I encounter in life, that all I can do is embrace the next moment as a Dharma gate. I'd like to start the reading today with just a poem by Rumi that I start my introduction with. Rumi is a poet of the soul, and I feel like I am also a poet of the soul. Nobody knows exactly what the soul is, but in my opinion, the soul is our Buddha nature. And so this poem, I'd like to start with, it's short. None of Rumi's poetry is titled. In your light, I learn how to love. In your beauty, how to make poems. You dance inside my chest where no one sees you, but sometimes I do. And that sight becomes this art. In this book of poetry, Holding On to Nothing, many of the poems traverse the 2 years of the pandemic and the death of my husband. As I looked for a way through those days of solitude and grief, nature and inspiration of poetry was my solace, and I was able to catch glimpses of what Rumi could sometimes see, the human soul. In writing these poems, I see that both darkness and light are doorways to enlightenment, and that our common lives are part of a greater unity, as well as the separateness inherent in the human condition. My hope is that these poems will inspire the reader to see the light within, about which Rumi has written. Today, I'll share some of the poems in the sections of my book on grief and insight, in which I encounter the deaths of my husband, my mother, and my unborn child, as well as the contemplation of my own death. You get to be my age, you contemplate death. Death is not an event, though, it's a process. It begins at birth and ends with physical death on this earth. However, watching a loved one draw near the end of life is a confrontation as profound as the contemplation of my own death. I find peace through contemplating the mystery of life and death. My Buddhist practice at Great Mountain Zen Center and the many years I've spent sitting with myself, learning from my teachers, sewing my rakusu, and studying the precepts is a way to continue to open my heart. The Heart Sutra reminds me how each moment of life and death are Dharma gates for enlightenment. I see clearly that we can't hold on to anything, and that we're all part of something greater that unifies us, our humanity. And so I sincerely hope that in opening my heart by sharing my poetry today, that your heart will be open to your own life. My life and poetry are a journey with my soul, destination unknown. The first few poems I'm going to read, I wrote about my husband, Bill. The process of watching him come home on hospice and knowing he was dying, and his death, and my attempts to deal with the grief of his passing. Walking in love. The near noon sun beat down as my husband and I ambled from shade to thin shade. I held his hand tightly. He paused often to lean on his cane, to breathe, to gather his strength as we moved toward a bench to rest beneath a copse of trees. In a younger summer, we would stroll hand in hand. He watched his dog bound ahead, disappear into the pines, and would flatten himself behind a tree and whistle. His dog would race back, turn in circles looking for him, a gloating bark and his laughter, a duet of joy. Yesterday he stumbled toward me, declared with the bright eyes of that 6-year-old boy who caught the baseball and won the game. Guess what? I walked to the back fence by myself. I grabbed his arm before he fell. I would have walked with you. Where is your cane? I felt fine, didn't need it. In that moment, the boy disappeared, and the old man returned. It was a wonder that he didn't fall, that he didn't drop that baseball. He let me hold his hand as we walked inside together, enfolded in lengthening shadows. A box of ashes. A sudden freeze and summer changed to autumn overnight. Frost lay on the still green grass. The leaves of the ash tree dried and curled, ready to fall at the next big wind. It is the way the seasons change, no surprise, but somehow I wasn't ready. Indian summer days, the late roses, the warmth of the sun, they were our comfort as I pretended it would last, knowing change was coming. We watched together as the season of his death arrived. In the garden, spring is a consolation. But unlike in the garden, there would be no spring. It arrived in the middle of ordinary life, 4 shuddering breaths, and he was gone. Yesterday, on the way to the market, or on the highway to places we had traveled together, he returns as a memory, just out of reach. There is no way to pretend I will see him again. There are no words for grief. There is a cardboard box on my altar. Inside is what remains of his body. He is not there. He is traveling a mystery, gone to a place I cannot follow. Our time here together is over. Next spring, his daughter and I will scatter his ashes where the river meets the sea on the coast of California. As grief settles, life continues. Last light. Late afternoon, as time shadows creep toward the edge of the patio, I sit where the last bit of sun touches my chair. I remember how you would gaze up through the sun-gilded leaves of the ash tree, watch the final flash of golden light as it fell across the garden. I pull my scarf close around my neck. Feel the shadows fall across my shoulders. The weight and tedium of long, solitary hours. I watch the light leave, listen to the wind chimes as the birds go home. As the world sinks into shade, I admit the darkness, the long night stretching ahead. In the kitchen, rushing to serve dinner by 6 o'clock, I'd be sauteing an onion in butter, moving full steam ahead like a freight train on its way to the station. My husband would sneak up behind me, tap me on the shoulder. Put that spoon down and turn around. The brakes would screech, the train would slow, and I'd reluctantly move into his waiting arms. He'd kiss my neck and declare, "How did I get so lucky?" Spoon in hand, I'd laugh and push him away. "Oh, my sweet Willie, the butter is burning." I'd turn back to stir the onions. Why didn't I just let the gravy burn? I could have melted into his arms, stayed to soak up the juices of his love. Love's regret. Oh, for one more day with you. I gaze across the empty space. Sharp stones of grief lay there below, the easier slope a turning away. I gaze across the empty space. If I had pulled your lips to mine, the easier slope a turning away, and opened wide for you to find. If I had pulled your lips to mine, I could have flown across to you and opened wide for you to find before you left me here alone. I could have flown across to you. Sharp stones of grief lay there below before you left me here alone. Oh, for one more day with you. The next two poems I wrote in memory of my mother. Mildred. She passed away 20 years ago. At daybreak, I woke up, aware of your dying, listened to your ragged breath. Between the time I kissed your damp forehead, smoothed back your hair, came back with coffee, you were gone, just gone. After they took away your body, I prowled the empty house looking for you, found only the thin air of dusty photos, the china vase that sat atop your desk. Perhaps if I had washed your body, settled over your soft white head the gown in which you would be buried, maybe then I could cry, feel the truth of your death. I look for you now and then in old albums, find you in sudden soft memories that flash and are gone. I long for one more chance to crack the shell, hard as Brazil nuts left too long in a bowl. Yearn to taste your secret sweetness. It would be easier if you had left a hole I could reach in, feel the texture of your tears. Surely then I'd know where to find mine. Color of birth. The green energy of beginnings, the eternal red energy of passion, vibrates one short chapter in a long continuing story. Green emerges blind out from the source, from a vessel holding back the tide. A flood of red pumps through my mother's heart, spirals down her body into my bloodstream. As a new tributary appears in the river, I breathe, wailing into the clear blue air. She lies in the ruined sheets, exhilarated, exhausted. Yet her story is still rising to the completion of the next sentence, as a period becomes a comma and expands into a run-on of regret, a continuance of longing. From the merging of green and red, a purple cloud hovers over my body. I sprint through streams of former lives to emerge from those waters of unnamed longing, gasping at my inheritance. The next two poems I wrote after I chose to have an abortion 40 years ago. It's always a difficult decision. I felt I wasn't ready to be a mother. Requiem. 50 or more stand silent near the edge of the street. They hold signs that remind me you were once real, warm inside my body. A step into what? You would have made a difference in the world had I refused the knife, our blood pooled together. Everything would have been different had you drawn in that first breath, breathed out your pure essence into my breath, into my life, into this wounded world. Who would you have been? Who would I be? Unborn to me, perhaps you live some other place. Could you be that laughing girl, the one I sat beside today? Her brown eyes smiled something pure. I breathed her in, closed my eyes, and I wished. Each day, I imagine a world with you in it. Say you're out there somewhere. Longing. Autumn arrives early with the cold cut of metal. The green wood of spring pulled upward toward the light, cut down, its promise stillborn. The fire of passion, its gift of creation, scattered to the ground, like fallen leaves quickly forgotten. Ashes of desire hollow my heart. Longing reaches out to grasp crushed blossoms of spring, summer's fruit laid waste. I have no daughter to ask forgiveness. The next poems are contemplations of my own death. What is left? The fleeting flicker of my life, like ghostly galaxies beyond the brightest star, appears for a time, then burns out. The dark absence becoming the womb of a mystery. When my ashes hang in the sky to disappear in a cloud of dust, all my objects of remembrance, my paintings, my poetry will be scattered, relegated to a dustbin. The year spent in Athens, dancing in tavernas, or hitchhiking the California coast, all my memories, all those I've loved, will be gone with my passing. I sit alone and watch clouds fade to dusk. Think of Ozymandias, king of kings, nothing of his empires left but the desert wind. My life is such a disappearing dream. I wonder as it flames out if there will be the imprint left of my irreplaceable life. Death. There is suffering in coming, in going. With the last hissing exhale, there is no return, no second chance. In moving beyond time and space, will fear grasp for imagined safety? Or will faith abandon that hope and speed toward the unimaginable? Either way, karma rules. No escape. The great masters, like mountain eagles, soar above the earth. See with their piercing vision life and death, that unbroken wholeness, both real and unreal. Solitude. Alone, I wonder if it is enough that those I love, even one true friend, share moments of time with me. Only I can see the whole of my life. And what of death? Will my life simply disappear? Perhaps we continue through time irreplaceable, not in the open sky of solitude, but together, held as one, in the reflection of each human heart we have touched. We shine in Indra's indelible web, so even in death, we are not alone. Surrender. We could all be aerialists like squirrels, divers like seals. It's just the apprehension we'll fall or drown keeps us tethered. Falling is an ecstasy, a speedy journey through lucent air. The wind sings incredible silence. Freed from moorings, stillness overcomes speed. Timeless, transcendent, endlessly falling, we breathe eternity. Fear nothing but freedom. Underwater, the same singing silence sways the sea's breathing, sinks into green currents and then into the blue of dusk. We long for light, a lantern in a window. The sun swims overhead out of reach. Far in the distance, a cello's ravished pathos draws us down. We swim as we did in utero, primal, protected, pulled by beauty, rejoicing in surrender. Comfort. The light is, and the light is not. In both light and darkness there is life. If there is a way forward, choose the light or embrace the darkness. In both, you will find comfort. Find yourself embraced, because life is always an embrace where the true light is found. Look behind your dream story as from a distance, and you will find the truth of your essential life, that the unity glows brighter than the brightest fragment. In the soul of everything, you see who you are, who you have been, who you are becoming, in the darkness and in the light that love creates. I'd like to end today with a prayer. It's a prayer that I offer many times, and it's a prayer that I offer for myself, for you, and for everyone. I'll read a line and you can repeat it, or you can say it to yourself. May we be at peace.
May we be at peace.
May our hearts remain open.
May our hearts remain open.
May we awaken to our own true nature.
May we awaken to our own true nature.
May we be healed.
May we be healed.
May we be a source of healing for all beings.
May we be a source of healing for all beings.
So be it.
So be it.